A guttural voice cut through the dense, humid air of the forest as Corch Cornea watched an alien group gather around the brightly colored fungi, known as dreekers. The dull light filtered through the towering trees, casting an eerie glow on the scene. "They're experienced warriors," he whispered, a mix of confusion and fear evident in his voice. His forked tongue flicked nervously, tasting the air as if searching for answers. Cole stifled a smile, though a hint of worry tugged at the edges of his amusement. He had warned them and tried to tell them that Earth was no place for the sloppy or arrogant. But these aliens had landed here, bent on conquest, assuming humanity's homeworld would be as easy to conquer as countless other planets. Cole knew better. The Earth was different. It wasn't just a dead world in name. It had earned a lethal reputation over eons of evolution, producing deadly and deceptive creatures and flora. The aliens, with all their advanced technology and militaristic culture, were about to learn this lesson the hard way. As the warriors touched the vibrant fungi, they began to lean against nearby trees, lulled by the sweet scent into a false sense of security. But these fungi were anything but harmless. Their toxins were deadly, offering a brief euphoric sensation before, approximately 12 hours later, the victim's organs would begin to shut down one by one. The group of drear warriors exchanged glances. Their scales were rippling with vitation. KX took a step back from the patch of mushrooms, his clawed hand resting on his stomach as if trying to will away the growing unease. But Cole continued, "That's just the start. You've set up camp in the middle of one of Earth's oldest forests and everything around you. Everything is out to kill you." One of the others, a broad-shouldered soldier with dark crimson scales, growled low in his throat. "We are not afraid of primitive plants and animals. We are the doctors here. We have conquered worlds far more dangerous than this." Cole chuckled, the sound low and almost pityingly dangerous, sure, but not like Earth, not like this forest. He motioned to the dense undergrowth that surrounded them. "You see, that vine over there looks harmless, right? That's poison, ivy. One brush against your skin and you'll be itching and burning for days, and that tree with the pretty white flowers. That's a mansion. Its sap can cause blisters, blindness, and even death. If you're not careful." Kix glanced around his composure. "Unravelingly, we have encountered toxins before our medical systems can neutralize them." Can they raise an eyebrow genuinely curious because these aren't just toxins? Earth has a way of turning the mundane into the deadly, and you don't even see it coming before the Dreeker can respond. There was a sudden rustling in the bushes. The group of aliens tensed their weapons and drawn their advanced rifles, glowing with a faint blue light. Cole didn't move, though he knew what was coming. A small creature darted out from the undergrowth, its fur bristling and teeth bead. It was a raccoon scavenging for food, but to the dragon, it might as well have been a miniature monster. The aliens fired their rifles, emitting a high-pitched sound as they unleashed a volley of energy bolts. The raccoon dodged most of them, quick and agile. Before retreating into the shadows, Cole shook his head, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. That was a raccoon. It was not dangerous. Unless you corner it, you'd never know that. You see something small, something that doesn't immediately appear threatening, and you think you can handle it. But Earth isn't just about the big threats. It's the small ones. That'll get you. The Drake here were silent, their earlier bravado waning as they processed what they had just witnessed. Cole could see the cracks forming in their confidence and the fear slowly creeping into their minds. They were beginning to realize that this wasn't just another planet to conquer. Earth was a different beast altogether. KX, his earlier defiance replaced by a wary uncertainty, looked at Cole with something approaching respect. "How did your kind survive here?" he asked, his voice disbelieving. Cole shrugged his gaze. "We adapted, we learned, we didn't try to fight the planet. We became a part of it, and that's why you're going to lose, because you think you can come here and treat Earth like every other world. You've invaded, but Earth isn't just going to fight back. It's going to teach you a lesson." KX opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, another sound echoed through the forest, a low, rumbling growl, followed by the snap of a branch. The Dray here froze their eyes wide as they tried to pinpoint the source of the noise, but the forest was dense. The trees towering above them cast deep shadows that made it impossible to see more than a few feet in any direction. Cole's expression hardened his tone. "Serious, you're in its territory now, and it knows you're here." Kix's scales rippled with unease, and he looked at Cole, his confidence shattered. "What is it?" Cole didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for his own weapon, a simple rifle by Dreer standards, but one that had served him well enough on Earth. He checked the chamber. His movements deliberated before finally answering. "Welcome to Earth, 6. Welcome to your worst nightmare." The growl echoed through the forest, low and menacing, sending a shiver through the ranks. Their confidence, already shaken by the poisonous floor and hostile fauna, crumbled further as they huddled closer together, their eyes darting nervously through the trees. The dense canopy overhead allowed only slivers of sunlight to penetrate, casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. Cole scanned the surroundings, his instincts honed from years of surviving in Earth's harshest environments. He could see the fear in the Draker's eyes, a primal terror that no amount of advanced technology or combat training could suppress. They were out of their element. They were far from the battlefields they were used to, and Earth was taking full advantage of their ignorance. "Stay close," Cole said, his voice low but firm. "You're not going to want to face this thing alone." "What is it?" KX asked again about his earlier bravado, now completely replaced with genuine fear. Cole didn't answer immediately. He was listening, waiting for another sign of the creature's presence. The forest had gone eerily silent, the usual chirping of birds and rustling of leaves replaced by an oppressive stillness. Whatever was out there was stalking them, biding its time. The drill soldiers, sensing the tension, raised their rifles. The glowing barrels trembled slightly as they aimed into the dark forest. Their scales, usually a vibrant display of dominance and power, had dulled with anxiety. Cole knew that their advanced weaponry wouldn't be enough. If they didn't understand the enemy they were facing, it's called a bear, Cole. Finally, keeping his voice even gritty, to be exact, it's big, it's fast, and it's got claws that can rip through armor like it's nothing but the worst part. It's not afraid of you. A murmur of unease spread through the Dreeker ranks. Six's eyes widened as his earlier sickness was forgotten. As the immediate threat loomed larger in his mind, why would it attack? "Do we mean it?" Cole allowed himself a grim smile. "You're in its territory on Earth. That's enough of a reason." The growl came again, closer this time, and the Dreer flinched their rifles, trained on the direction of the sound Cole could hear. The massive form of the grizzly bear emerged from the shadows. It was a monstrous beast, its fur matted and its eyes dark. Glinting with predatory intelligence, the bear stood on all fours, easily the size of a small vehicle, and its breath came in heavy rhythmic huffs as it sized up the intruders for a moment. Time seemed to stand still. The Dreer, usually so quick to respond with overwhelming force, were paralyzed by the sheer presence of the animal they had faced down. Legions of alien warrior ships bristled with weaponry, and entire planets resisted their conquest. But this was different. The bear was no mere creature. It was a force of nature, a living embodiment of Earth's hostility. "Whatever you do," Cole whispered, "don't run." But his warning came too late. One of the Dreers, a young warrior who had been jittery since the encounter with the toxic mushrooms, broke ranks, turned, and bolted his feet, pounding against the forest floor as he tried to escape the inevitable. The bear's reaction was immediate, with a speed that defied its size. It lunged forward, covering the distance between it and the fleeing alien in a few powerful strides. The Dreeker fired their energy bolts, crackling through the air, but the bear was undeterred. It swatted at the fleeing soldier, its massive paw catching him mid-stride. The force of the blow sent the Dreeker flying into a nearby tree with a sickening thud. The bear didn't pause. It was on the fallen warrior in an instant, with jaws closing around the Dreer's neck. With brutal efficiency, Kick shouted something in his native tongue, the meaning lost on Cole, but the panic in his voice was clear. The remaining doctors here continued to fire their shots. More frantic than precise, as the bear turned its attention back to the main group, the energy bolts, seared, the air striking the bear's thick hide, but only seemed to enrage. Cole knew this wasn't going to end well for the aliens. They were out of their depth, relying on technology that didn't account for Earth's unpredictability. He had to get them out of here, or there wouldn't be any of them left to teach the lesson he was trying to impart. Falling back, Cole barked, moving toward the nearest Dreer and grabbing him by the arm. "We need to get to higher ground. Won't you follow us up the cliffs, Kick?" Still in shock from the sudden violence, he nodded numbly and went to move. He ordered his remaining soldiers, and they began a hysterical retreat, firing sporadically to keep the bear at bay. Cole led them through the forest. His pace was quick but measured, making sure the dragon didn't panic, and Scatter the bear followed, but its interest seemed to waver as they put distance between themselves and its territory. Eventually, the growls faded, replaced by the sound of the group's labored breathing and the crunch of leaves underfoot after what felt like an eternity. They reached a rocky incline, a natural barrier that would be difficult for the bear to navigate. Cole gestured for the Dreaker to climb, and they scrambled up the rocks, their scales scraping against the rough surface as they hauled themselves to safety once they were all at the top. The cliff Cole turned to KX, who was panting heavily, his scales dull with exhaustion and fear. "This is Earth." Cole set his tone. "Seriously, you're not just fighting humans. You're fighting the planet itself, and it doesn't matter how advanced you think you are." KX's gaze hardened, but there was no denying the fear that lingered in his eyes. "This is madness." He muttered more to himself than to Cole, who nodded slowly. "Welcome to our Madness 6. It's only just begun." The rocky cliff offered a brief respite and a moment of calm in the chaotic nightmare that had engulfed the Dreyer troops. The Ian soldiers, normally so confident and imposing, were huddled together like children after a bad dream, their scales dull and their weapons held limply in their clawed hands. The forest stretched out below them, a living entity that seemed to pulse with danger, waiting for them to make a wrong move. Cole knew they couldn't stay here for long. The grizzly bear might have been the most immediate threat, but it was far from the only one. Earth's forests were full of creatures that could kill in ways the doctor could hardly imagine. The Dreyer were on the brink of panic, their minds unable to fully comprehend the true nature of the world they had dared to invade, and that was exactly where Cole wanted them. "That bear was just the beginning," Cole said, breaking the silence that had fallen over the group. "You're lucky we got away, but there's no telling what else is out there waiting for a chance to strike." Kick looked up at Cole, his eyes filled with a mix of exhaustion and desperation. "What do you want from humans? Why did you bring us here?" Cole stared, his expression hard. "You came to conquer Earth. You thought it would be easy, like all the other worlds you've taken, but Earth is different. It's not just a place. It's a living, breathing force. You don't conquer Earth. You survive it, and right now, I'm the only thing keeping you alive." The Dreaker soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. The weight of Cole's words was sinking in. They had come to Earth expecting a quick victory, a show of force that would break the human resistance, but the planet itself had turned against them, and they were beginning to realize that their technological superiority meant nothing here. Cole turned away from Sick, surveying the forest below. He could feel the tension in the air. The way the Dreyer were hanging on his every word, desperate for a way out of the nightmare. They had stumbled into "there's a way off this planet." He said, his voice was measured, "But you're going to have to work with me if you want to make it out alive." Crix narrowed his eyes, suspicion creeping into his voice. "Why would you help us?" "You're our enemy," Cole shrugged. "Maybe I just don't like seeing creatures suffer, even if they're invaders, or maybe I want you to go back to your people and tell them what Earth is really like. Tell them that this planet isn't for the taking. It's a warning." The Dreaker leader hesitated, weighing his options. He was a warrior trained to lead his people in battle, but nothing had prepared him for a world like this. Finally, he nodded at the decision made. "What do we have to do?" Cole glanced at the sky, noting the position of the sun. They had only a few hours before darkness fell, and with it, the true terrors of the forest would emerge. "We need to reach higher ground somewhere with a clear view of the sky from there. We can signal your ship for extraction, but it's not going to be easy. The forest is only going to get more dangerous as night falls." The Dreer soldiers bristled at the thought of another trek through the hostile wilderness, but Sick silenced their murmurs with a sharp gesture. "We follow the humans he commands. He knows this world." Cole didn't waste any time. He led them along the ridge, moving quickly but cautiously, every step calculated to avoid the myriad dangers lurking in the underbrush. The Dreer followed their once proud forms, now subdued and wary, their eyes darting nervously at every sound as they moved deeper into the forest. The trees began to thin, giving way to a rocky slope that climbed upward toward a series of jagged cliffs. Cole could feel the change in the air. The forest was watching them, waiting for its chance to strike. He quickened the pace, pushing the Dreaker to their limits. Knowing that they had to reach the summit before nightfall, they were almost there when the ground beneath them shifted. Cole reacted instantly, throwing himself to the side as the earth crumbled away, revealing a hidden pit lined with jagged rocks and thorny vines. One of the 3 soldiers wasn't so lucky. He plunged into the trap with a cry, his body impaled. On the cruel spikes below, Kix snarled in frustration, his claws digging into the earth as he pulled himself back from the edge. How much more of this hell do we have to endure? Cole? We helped him to his feet. His expression is grim. Not much farther, but you need to stay focused. The forest is testing you, trying to break you. Don't let it climb. Continued, the dying soldiers growing more exhausted with each step. They were not used to this kind of warfare, this battle of attrition against an enemy they couldn't see or understand. But Cole kept them moving, driving them forward with a mix of harsh commands and quiet encouragement. Finally, they reached the summit, a rocky outcrop that overlooks the vast expanse of the forest. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the landscape, but the view was clear. Cole wasted no time pulling out a flare gun from his pack and firing it into the sky. The bright red signal arced upward, bursting into a shower of sparks that illuminated. In the darkening forest below, there was silence for a moment. Then, in the distance, a low hum filled the air. With the unmistakable sound of a drear ship descending through the atmosphere, KX's eyes lit up with relief. The first genuine emotion Cole had seen from him since the nightmare began. "They're coming," Kix said, his voice a mix of awe and disbelief. Cole nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon, where the ship would soon appear. "Yeah, they're coming, but don't think for a second that this is over." Six turned to him, confusion flickering across his face. "What do you mean?" Cole's expression was unreadable as he spoke. "Let you go this time, but if you or your people ever come back, if you think you can take this planet without paying the price, the forest won't be so forgiving." The next time, Kix opened his mouth to respond, but the words died in his throat. As the Draper ship appeared, its sleek metallic form descended toward the summit. The surviving soldiers gathered around their exhaustion, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. They had survived barely, but the experience had changed them as the ship landed, its ramp lowering to the ground. Kix gave Cole one last look, a silent acknowledgement of the lesson learned. Then, without another word, he and his troops boarded the ship, leaving the forest behind. Cole watched as the ship ascended, its engines roaring to life as it disappeared into the sky. He stood there for a long moment alone on the summit. The forest was quiet around him. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the first stars began to twinkle in the night sky. Finally, Cole turned away, making his way back down. The mountain Earth was safe for now, but he knew that the message had been sent, one that would echo across the galaxy, warning anyone who would dare challenge the might of Earth's most dangerous predator, the planet itself, PA.